If you're like me, you probably spend a ridiculous amount of time on your computer. Being fast on your computer means that you can be more productive. And so in this video, I'm going to be talking about how you can actually increase the productivity on your MacBook. I spend a lot of time on my computer doing stuff like YouTube, studying medicines, like practicing medicine, and doing e-commerce, running blogs. So basically, being fast on the computer is something that's really, really important to me and something that I've spent a lot of time thinking about. Let's get right into it. I want to start off with an app called Alfred. Basically, it allows you to press Option and Spacebar, and it brings up this bar as I've got here. Now, the thing that you can do with it is that you can actually type in whatever you want in terms of the program that you're looking to access or the file that you're looking to access. So for example, if I wanted to access the graphic design program Sketch, I'll just simply type Option Spacebar and then Sketch. And you can do that from anywhere on the Mac and then bring it up really quickly. You can also bring up files, and I think that this is probably the thing that I use it most for, because I hate trying to spend time searching for files. You have to go into the folders and you have to go and click and you have to be like, oh, where did I put it? No, you don't have to do that anymore, because if you've got Alfred, what you can do is you can just Option Spacebar, and then you can actually type space, and then you can look for whatever file you want by just simply starting to type. And it searches your entire computer. Super duper useful. As soon as you click on the individual file, I don't know what file I've got here, but then it'll bring it back up. Something really cool about Alfred is that you can actually set up search as well and custom search. So for example, as a doctor, I use the website UpToDate all the time, which is like our medical version of Wikipedia. You can think of it like that. If you actually go to the Alfred preferences, click on features, go to the web search section, you can see that what I've done is I've set up this particular search query where if you go to it, you can add a custom search or edit a custom search. You go to the search bar and then you have to, actually type in whatever you're searching for. So let's say, just as a basic one, pneumonia, and you have to go and you can, click on whatever. So that process takes a bit of time. You can reduce that process to basically one step, not the login part, but the actual searching part. If you go and, to use Alfred instead, what you can do is I've set it up so I type UTD and then I will search for, let's say, cardiac failure, and then it immediately brings it up and immediately searches. So that's a lot of time saved. To actually set that up, you simply go to the Alfred preferences and go to web search. You go to this add custom search thing, and then you take your original browser thing, whatever website it is. It works for any website, and you type in query into the search bar. And then what I want you to do is then you take the URL that's from the top, copy and paste that, so the Command C, and paste that with Command V. Then you go to this query part here that I've got in the URL. You add these curly brackets, which are on the top right of your computer, and you hold Shift and do the curly brackets and put that around query. And so what you can then do is then type search, for example, in my case, UpToDate for query. And then the keyword you can put, I'm just going to put like something else like mob, just because I want to test it out, right? So if you save that, what will happen is that if I now type mob, then I can search for UpToDate using that URL, tuberculosis or something. And voila, it comes up really, really quick, really easy. You can use this for any website. That's super duper useful for anything. The second thing I want to talk about is called Magnet. Magnet is $7.99 USD, but what it does is, on Windows, like computers, you can snap the window to like left and right. Well, Magnet kind of does the same thing. Instead of like having to go and sort of resizing this window and making sure it's like exactly half or whatever, you can actually just press Command Option, left, right, up, down. So let's say that I've opened up a new window, right? And I've just started a new document. Now, by default, if I drag it to left or right, it doesn't really size properly. But if I open up Magnet, then what will happen is I can actually press Control, Option, and then an arrow key, and then it easily snaps to the left or right. And so you don't have to fiddle around with perfect resizing. Control, Option, left, right, up, down. There's also like, you can do JKI in this to set like a quarter of the screen. To make it a full screen, you can press Control, Option, Return. So that's really, really useful. And it also allows you, like, if you're not really, a keyboard magician or anything like that, you can actually just take the individual window and snap it to the left or right, just like you would on Windows. So that's called Magnet. Let's say you've got something cool that you want to show someone, but you want to sort of take a screenshot of it. Now, there's two ways to do this on a Mac. One way that I found useful at the start, and I used this for many years, is called Skitch. So Skitch, again, another free program. What it allows you to do is you can take a screen snap, and when you press that button, it gives this crosshair. You can actually take that, drag that, and so this is like selecting a thing, and it gives you a screenshot. And the really good thing about Skitch is that you can drag the screenshot anywhere you like. So for example, I'm just going to drag it into my desktop and it comes up as a file there. So that's super cool. This is useful for if you're trying to have screenshots of emails or trying to do screenshots of other things. Now that's one thing, and that's useful for creating files and putting them in certain places. But another tool that I use to make things a lot faster these days is to actually use Mac's inbuilt screenshot tool. I've set it up because basically by default, like all Macs have this, so your Mac will definitely have this, but by default, you have to do this sort of like weird hand jutsu thing where it's like Command Shift F4, and it's like really not comfortable because you kind of got this claw hand to do that screenshot. So what I've done actually is I've made it so my actual shortcut is mapped so that it's just Control and F, because you actually don't use Control and F for many things. You use Command and F to find things in like a web page or whatever, but Control and F is a bit different. I go to keyboard shortcuts, and then you can see that I've disabled the screenshot and recording options one because I want to save that for Skitch, which is Command Shift 5, and then you can do that. But that's using Skitch. If you're using the actual screenshot tool from your own clipboard and your own Mac, you can actually take this one that says copy picture of selected area to the clipboard. You double click on this one and then you change it from whatever it was and then press Control F. So it means that now in a very comfortable non-jutsu-y type position, I can just press Control F and literally copy and paste this wherever I like. So I use this a lot for Notion. Basically, there was a time where actually a time very recently, where like a month or two ago, I had to study pretty much every single topic in medicine for general practice. And so what I did was, you can see that this is my sort of super gigantic file of all the things that I studied. And what I did was I would, instead of trying to waste time typing my own notes, because I had such a big breadth of stuff to cover, I actually just took this website that had a lot of notes, and if I found something useful, I'd be like, Control F, and then simply go to wherever I want, and then paste it immediately. And so you can see that literally took like 2 seconds. Obviously, it would make more sense if I did it with an actual website. So that maybe, I'm just gonna search again, Wikipedia, I don't know, HIV or something. And let's say that on Notion, I wanted to create a new file about HIV. Then simply what I would do is I would press Control F and then Command V to copy and paste it that quickly. Literally takes 2 seconds. It's a very low amount of cognitive friction. Now, you might ask, if you can copy and paste the text, why wouldn't you just do that instead? But this is really useful for example, if you're watching a video and you wanted to, copy and paste a slide or something like that, or if you've got some websites that don't actually allow you to, copy and paste a text because they've got some blocker on it, you can use this Control F thing to actually screenshot really quickly. That's probably one of the big time savers that I've got. Getting out of the medicine world and going into the digital world, I find that a lot of the time, being able to share your screen is really useful. I have a tool that I use sort of for this YouTube channel, but also for other things, called ScreenFlow. It's a bit expensive. It's $149 US, but it essentially allows you to record your screen. It allows you to be able to blur out certain parts. It also allows you to edit the clips and edit the audio. I won't go into it too much, but that's super useful for that. If you are wanting to go El Chivo, or you just are doing screenshots because you want to share it with colleagues, another alternative to that is called Loom. That one allows you to not only record a screenshot sort of immediately, but then actually share the link of the video that you've just recorded with anyone in the world. So that's really useful too. One practical tip that I should note, that if you're installing something like Skitch or Alfred or whatever it is, often you have to access the privacy settings, because by default, Macs are very secure, and so they really let you not get hacked by different things. But if you, for example, wanted to let screen recording happen, then you actually have to go to the security and privacy part, make sure that you click the lock to make changes into your password, and then you click the plus button to find the actual application to actually allow access to screen record stuff. So that can be very confusing at the start, especially if you've got a new MacBook and you've never used Macs before, but that's basically how Apple works there. I want to talk about some other things that make your computer life really fast. And so this is with regards to navigation. People just don't know this, but there's a way that you can actually put on free finger drag. And what I mean by that is, if you go to Systems Preferences, you would think it's in Trackpad, but no, it's not. It's actually in Accessibility for some some reason. And if you go to, I think it's pointer control, and go to this mouse and trackpad extension. One, you can actually change the double click speed and some other things. But if you actually go to trackpad options, now I've obviously got a mouse, so it doesn't really sort of apply to me as much these days. But if you're like out and about with your computer, it's just annoying to like just have to push down and then you drag the window and then you sort of like, you feel like you're getting arthritis of like your index finger or whatever. So instead, the lighter way is to enable free finger drag. And so what this allows you to do, you can just take your free fingers and then simply, use free fingers at once to actually move the window. So that's really, really, really useful. The next thing I want to talk about, and this is super duper useful for anyone that's watching lectures or just wanting to watch anything at an increased speed, is if you have Google Chrome, you can actually install this thing called Video Speed Controller. And it doesn't matter whether you're watching YouTube or watching Vimeo or any other sort of HTML5 player. If you add this plugin, you can actually speed up the speed at which people talk on the video. So you simply Google it, go to Chrome Web Store, and this is only sort of going to work on Google Chrome. There might be others on Safari and stuff, but once you actually install it, then you can go to any video. So this is a random Mr. Beast video. It doesn't really have this sort of knob and you have to watch it at 1x speed. Technically on YouTube you can change the playback speed, but on other video websites you can't always do that. However, now when I refresh this video, you can see that it's come up with this little thing on the top left corner here, and that allows me to actually speed up the video, say 2 times, 3 times, however many times. And that's again super duper useful if you've got like someone that really talks slow in a lecture and you just want to sort of speed them up so that you can keep on paying attention to them. Or if you wanted to, like you could, if I talk too fast, you can slow down this video. So the next app that I want to talk about is called Keyboard Maestro. So Keyboard Maestro actually allows you to program macros into your computer, meaning that you can actually create these little automations that are really cool. For example, I use this a lot when I was doing like different e-commerce stuff, and sometimes there'd be this like repetitive clicking and copying pasting or fulfilling orders and that sort of thing, and I just needed to click the same buttons in the same way every single time. What you can do with Keyboard Maestro is that you can actually program it so that it clicks on certain buttons at certain times. Let's open up Keyboard Maestro as an example, just to say for reference sake that I wanted to like click this remove from Chrome button a lot, and that I wanted to set a keyboard shortcut to do that. So what I can do is I'm going to use my Control F thing that I used before. I'm going to actually go to here and I'm going to just create this new macro. Okay, so creating one from scratch. So click the remove from Chrome button as just the title of the macro. I'm going to make it so that every time I press Command and this slash key, I'm going to click that button. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it activate the application. So you can just set individual actions, and those actions, like there's a lot of stuff on Keyboard Maestro that you can do. You can crop images, you can execute JavaScript, you can actually even, if you're used to coding, use for loops and if this then that sort of conditionals. You can do things like set a clipboard, you can set a variable and those sorts of things as well. And so basically you can do anything on Keyboard Maestro. So with that, I'm going to just activate a specific application. So let's say if I haven't got my Chrome window activated, I'm going to make it so that it is activated and bring that to the front. I'm going to add a new step. So to click the plus button here, then I'm going to make it so that it looks for a certain image and clicks on it. So I'm just gonna, I know that this one's called click at found image, and then I'm gonna make it so that it just clicks the left button on the remove from Chrome thing. So remember, I've copied and pasted this to my clipboard already by using the Control F thing that I talked about before. So I'm going to paste it into this little section here, and I don't know if you can see, it's very tiny, but it's actually got the image there set as the variable. And so now what happens is that if I test this out and press Command slash, then it'll go and it'll click on the button. This is a very, very simple example, but obviously if you had something where, for example, you had 100 buttons and they always appear the same every single time, you can make it so that this program clicks on every single one of those buttons. And that's really, really, really handy for saving time. So the next app that I wanted to talk about is called Text Expander. Text Expander allows you to actually take snippets of text that you've predefined. So you just type in some small keyboard shortcuts and you can basically get paragraphs of text. So if you're finding that you're doing something where you're just typing the same thing over and over and over again, whether that's customer service, whether that's notes, whether that's anything that you're doing basically, then you can use text expander to actually save the different paragraphs that you would be typing and map it to a shortcut. For example, like I download a lot of YouTube videos and I wanted to download YouTube videos to my hard drive, but as you can see, I've got this command here, which is just using a thing called YouTube-DL in terminal, and it's a bit complicated, but you know, I don't want to type this every single time because it's going to take forever, and it's also going to take forever to find the web page that has this particular thing. So now what I can do is I can simply go to text expander, and I've got it set to .youtube. So if I simply type .youtube, it comes up with that gigantic expression, and you can set as many of these as you want. Another thing that I did do for it was when I was trying to make notes, often I would have to talk about the same things over and over again with regards to differential diagnosis and history, and this is in the context of medicine. So I made it so that I could just copy and paste this entire paragraph just by typing dot and then these two greater than symbols. Dig a little bit deeper into the text expander because there are some useful tools that are, you know, a little bit specific to it. The reason that I use text expander as well instead of just having like a document where I can just copy and paste the macros is because you can actually do stuff like you can do a fill-in. So for example, let's say that like I'm going to create a new snippet here just for illustration's sake. I'm going to create like something where it's like talking to a customer and be like, hi there, and then it's got the customer's name. So I can create what's called a fill-in. And so if I click this fill-ins button and click single line field, then it'll put like, I can put like a name there, for example. And then what that does is if I sort of set the abbreviation to say .yy, when I actually type in .yy, it'll actually give me a prompt to say, oh, what's the actual like thing that you're filling in. So like, hi there, David, your order is ready. And then it'll come up as a thing. And I've essentially like made it so that I only need to type in the customer's name, but it's pre-populated everything. Again, super useful. You can add in extra stuff, like for example, you know, the date. If you wanted to include that, you could. You can include the time. You can include even calculations for the date and that sort of thing. And then you can include a few other things there too. I honestly don't use it that much these days, but it's something that if you are doing a lot of typing and repetitive tasks, then that could be very useful. So in this next section, I want to talk about note-taking software. And it's just going to be a very brief comparison of a few of the ones I use and why I use them, because actually there's different types of note-taking software for different things. So I use Notion for structured thoughts. And medicine is a really good example. YouTube is another good example where I want to have some sort of overarching structure to it that is well organized in my mind. But sometimes I want unstructured stuff, and in that particular case I'll use Roam. But sometimes I just want to type stuff on my phone, like, you know, I'll be on the street, I'll be like, oh, that's a really good idea for a YouTube script. So in that particular case, I just use my iPhone and just use Apple Notes. Notion, when I talk about structure, I can show you, for example, this document which I've got, which is every topic in medicine, is literally one gigantic structure where everything is a medical condition, and each of those medical conditions have individual subpoints within them that are pretty well defined. If I want structure, Notion is the best, and I've made a lot of videos about like little castings and stuff that you can check out if you're interested in a proposed structure that I have for that. If I have unstructured thoughts where I'm just like, well, I want to be able to retrieve this thought later, but I don't necessarily want to commit to putting it in a certain structure, then I'll use Roam Research. So for example, if I have random stuff that I think about with regards to YouTube and that sort of thing, the reason for using Roam is that you want to create topics on the fly. So for example, let's say I wanted to talk about machine learning type stuff. You know, machine learning relies on gradient descent. I don't know, just something super basic. And so like, I would go here and then I can create these little brackets. And that means that every time I mention machine learning, I can look at all the times that I've talked about machine learning in my daily notes, and then it will come up here in this thing. So this is a thing called bidirectional linking. Notion kind of, you can do this as well, but not as well as Roam, I feel. And that's something very, very useful for structuring unstructured thoughts and really not having to think about the structure. This is like a super interesting hack. What you can do is you can automatically put photos into notes using your iPhone. What you do is you open up the camera part of your iPhone and just leave that there. And then with your Mac, you go into a new Apple Note. Then if you actually go to File and then Set from iPhone, you can go to Take Photos. So for example, I'm just gonna do that. And then it comes up and changes your camera on your iPhone. So if I, for example, take a picture, then use photo, it will automatically put it onto my notes on the computer. Apparently you can do sketches as well. So for example, I'm going to go here and go again, file, instead from iPhone, add sketch. And now it's actually got my little drawing tool coming up on the iPhone. So I might be like, yay, it's this. So let's do that. And my horrible sketch has now come up on the computer there. So that's super duper cool. This is just using Apple Notes in particular. So using these different tools, which is Notion, Roam, and Apple Notes, I really have no excuse to be able to put my thoughts down at any point in time. But sometimes I like to actually publish my thoughts, and so I actually put them onto a blog. I instead go to this program called Ulysses, and this is another thing that you can get from Mac specifically. I've actually connected it directly to my blog so that I can publish it directly from my desktop, and that's really, really cool. I won't talk about it too much now, but essentially it allows you to like just make really, really nice articles and format them really well, whilst having the nice sort of speed that you get by having a native desktop app. This is a bit of a productivity hack as well. So there's this thing both on the iPhone and on the MacBooks, which is called Do Not Disturb mode. And if you're someone like me that really doesn't like to have notifications interrupt the thing that I'm doing, then this is really helpful. It's on the top right, and if you actually click Do Not Disturb, it will turn off your, you can turn off notifications that come onto your Mac, which is super useful. What I often do is I actually turn on my Do Not Disturb from midnight, in other words, 0000, and then all the way till 11:59 p.m. of that same day. And so it means that if I do get notifications, they just come all at once in that 1 minute where I don't really care and I don't really look at them, and then they disappear after a minute. So like, it's really, really useful. This last bit of the video is super duper interesting. I only found this out by accident actually. I was typing heaps and heaps and heaps for my recent exams, and like my hands were like legit getting sore. So I was like, is there a way that I can control my computer or add text to my computer without using my hands? And I found two really interesting things. One you may know about, the other one you probably don't know about. First thing is that you can actually use voice dictation. That's the one that most people probably know about. If you go to accessibility on your system's preferences, and then you go to voice control, you can actually enable this voice control thing. To be perfectly honest, it's a little bit clunky on the M1 Macs, and so that's why I'm not going to activate it right today. Essentially what it allows you to do, and especially on the older Intel Macs, it works like perfectly fine because I know I've tried it. You can actually dictate to it so that you can speak words and then it'll come out as text. So that's really good. It uses the same engine that is, powered by Siri. That's really, really great. But not only can you dictate text, but you can actually control the different things on your computer using it. So you can close windows, you can open other windows, you can open programs. I would keep this activated on my computer at all times if it wasn't for the fact that for some reason on M1 MacBook Pros, it just seems to slow things down like heaps. So that's why I haven't got it activated. But that's really useful if you're someone that, for example, actually can't use your hands. Maybe you had some sort of injury or something like that. The other thing is that, and this is really funky. So let's say like you go to the next level and you're not just wanting to use your voice, but you're wanting to control your computer with your head. Now, this is something that's super duper interesting. You can go to pointer control, and then you can go to alternative control methods, right? You can enable this thing called a head pointer. So like literally, I'm gonna turn it on right now. And what it is it uses your camera, and then when you move your head, you can actually move the mouse. So as you can see, like my mouse is moving on my screen, but my head is like controlling the actual mouse. So like, that's really interesting. So you can actually make it so that you can actually click using your face as well. And I don't mean like, licking the mouse button or something weird like that. I mean like, you can go to this alternative pointer actions thing. Oops, let me actually cancel that for a second. And you can make it so that like left click, for example, is a physical facial expression. Okay, so I've changed it so now that if I smile, that's the actual click instead. Oops, so you just click there, for example, because I'm too busy smiling. So now when I smile, it actually clicks, and because the poking out tongue one unfortunately didn't work out for me. So if I'm still moving it with my head, again, hands completely free, and then I'm going to click on Sketch by smiling. Cool. So you can see that actually totally works. It was a bit finicky, but if you really don't have the ability to use your hands or even your voice, then that's a really good alternative, I suppose. Now, that doesn't really help you become ultra productive on Mac, but if you're someone that actually can't use your hands, that actually would genuinely be life-changing. That's enough for this video. I hope that you feel much more productive on your MacBook. Feel free to ask me if there's anything that you want me to talk about in more depth, but I hope that was useful. I'll catch you in the next video.